we will start our panel discussion. I call upon Achyut to join me. And Achyut Vatve is one of the leading structural consultants in the country. He doesn't need any introduction. And on the panel, we have Rushikesh Hadnookar.
Rushikesh Hadnookar is a principal architect from Architect Rushikesh. Very large architectural firm doing a lot of projects. Next.
Okay, then we have Kaustuv Ghosh, L&T. He is in charge of high-rise construction division in Larsen & Toubro, and is responsible for planning, construction methodology and optimization techniques in high-rise construction, having more than 32 years of experience. 32 years of experience.
Yogesh Hate, now he is with RMZ, but done lot of projects in Dubai and also in India. Very fast construction is forte. Thank you.
Then we have Qutub Mandvivala, a leading architect in Mumbai. He is the founder of MQA, Mandvivala, Qutub and Accociates, international award-winning architecture, urban and interior designer firm headquartered in Mumbai, India. Welcome, Qutub.
And Mr. Indrajeet Kembhavi, Kembhavi Architect Foundation. Now we'll start. The basic motto is challenges in high-rise construction. You will find there are only 2 people sitting who is actually building the thing, and 4 people are making challenges. They are the architects. So he makes challenges, and these 2 people are comply with the challenges, and we 2 are there.
We are like Narad Munis, so we are structural engineers.
We say yes to architect, yes to
Yeah.
challenges also.
That's
and
right.
whatever is possible, we do.
Yeah.
So let's start.
So let's start with Rushikesh. You are the architect of many tall buildings. You go there. Yeah. So in designing tall buildings architecturally, do you find any challenges in terms of the what do you call the demands from the developers on one side and the constraints which are thrown to you by structural engineers and project managers, contractors? So do you get caught in between, and do you have any constraints in architecturally designing tall buildings?
Hello. See, at the outset, I think there's no major challenge in the making the plan of the whole plan, master plan, or the typical floor plan, anything. It's not a challenge. The challenge comes if we put all the consultants on day one of the job, which I don't see as a practice. Otherwise, as a planning, and there are basic things which everybody knows. The edges have to be round, and the basic, everything is very, very clear to all the architects who are doing these high-rise buildings. The problem is that when we come up at 5th floor level or 6th floor level, then we start doing the changes in terms of the requirement. Then they want duplexes, then they want anything.
So they come from developers, you mean?
They come from developers. Otherwise, from the structural point of view, if you give a nice core, then the structural consultant is very happy.
Are you?
Correct. Correct. That's what my experience is. A nice core, and then you got all the flats adjoining to them, and making a nice plan. That's simple. And then the facade things come. See, the most difficult thing, what according to me, is making the elevation, because it's a repetitive. And then what to do at the top, and it should be for decades. Like the elevation. Like everybody wants to do their cities like New York, Shanghai, and all that. But the kind of money what they put in their facades, are we able to do that? That's not happening.
I have one question, Mr. Kembhavi. Any client comes to you and he says, I want to construct high-rise building, or you say this is the FSI, this is the plot, and you make him to make it high-rise. What is the question? Because number of times high-rise is being constructed because of want of space, and all problems start. or high-rise is constructed for iconic reasons, how you deal with these clients?
See, I feel like today, when we look at it, high-rise buildings are a definitive requirement from 2 points. The first being that low-rise buildings are eating away our land space, whether it's within a site or whether it's outside a site. The higher the building goes, we have a better emphasis on greenery, we have a better emphasis on, play areas, we have space to do other things other than having a big footprint. So I feel tall buildings in today's world are very imperative and that we have to go for that. The second point being is that clients today come to us for tall buildings only from an aspirational point of view, because they want to stand out and they want to do it. It's not coming in from a very significant need to address a particular solution. The big challenge that we are seeing today is that costs. Like when we look at a building today, like probably in a place like Bombay where the land costs are extremely high and probably around in the central city, I think 70-80% of the entire project cost is the land cost. In cities where we practice, like south of India majorly, we see that the construction cost occupies around 60% of the cost of the entire project. So today with tall buildings, the challenge that we see with our clients, except in central areas, is essentially getting the costs right. Because as we go ahead, it's not only in the structure but also in the finishes, the kind of glazing, the kind of plumbing, the costs increase. So the whole idea I feel is that for a tall building, getting the right equations in terms of cost and aesthetics and maintenance. As he already rightly said that Indians don't have a budget of the kind that we see across in the West. So I feel that's the biggest challenge which is coming in. And this is the biggest task that we as architects and consultants have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And this is going to increase more looking at the heightened cost inflation that is happening post-COVID.
So with this point itself, I will come to Qutub. And this was a very nice point which was raised regarding the cost of the building. So with this increased cost for high-rise buildings, will it never be a solution for mass housing that is needed? Let's say in Mumbai, we are going for redevelopment and we need mass housing. So can these high-rise buildings be not a solution for mass housing?
So hi, we have to understand from where the high-rises come. So if you remember way back, I think 2000, 2002, when the first TDR started coming in, we were in the suburbs at 1 FSI. In the city, we were at 1.33 FSI. And on that 1 FSI, we started getting a TDR that was the road TDR and the slum TDR, and we went up to 1.85 as the FAR. And we had large parcels of land which we used to develop, 20 acres, 15 acres, whether it was Koregaon, Malad, and Thana, Borivali, etc. And we were able to squeeze the buildings within 8 stories. We used to get that 7 plus 1, 8 stories to consume that 1.85 FAR. And we were doing this mass housing, and it was very comfortable. We were having a very conventional Indian kind of apartments with central courtyards. So we used to make that C blocks and linear blocks which were there. You guys were comfortable, we were comfortable, everyone was comfortable because the costing was coming within the purview of the buyers, and we had just plain stills with open parking. So the density is what that governs the reason for high-rise buildings that have come up. So today, in most of the cases, you have landed up with 4 FAR, and you have landed up with projects which are majorly redevelopment rather than the greenfield projects which were there way back in the 2000s. Now, you already have a high density and you have smaller plots which you are developing. So, once that comes in, by force, you have no other choice but to do development which is going to go vertically up. As you go vertically up, the project density per se starts increasing. From a 1.5 meter staircase, you start getting to 2 meters wide staircases which starts coming in. From a normal columns of 1.2 meter by 0.3, you suddenly start drawing, you start giving me shear walls which are of 300 and 350 and 400 and 450 wide. So there is a certain density which comes because of FAR. There is a certain density which comes because of laws. You have elevators which comes in. So you will have a a vertical transport consultant who will start counting and saying, I need 6 elevators. You're bulging the density further up. Then there comes a rule which says you need 1 more elevator as a tower elevator or a fire escape or a fireman's elevator. You are increasing further the density which comes in. So your per se construction area ratio versus the carpet area ratio also starts floating up. So it is a kind of a ripple effect. It's a collateral effect that happens, that as you go higher, you still go higher, And then for sure, the next thing comes is, as you said, how you sit this thing within the cost factor. Rushikesh rightly said that you have to work around, where you have a central core and start placing the apartments around so that you are comfortable, Mr. Vatwe is comfortable. He doesn't have to say that this is not the way to do high rise and this is the way to do high rise in meetings. And you start having apartments and you start having a building which is fitting within your aspect ratios and within your torques and within your torsions and fitting within your high-rise committee's purview, which is there. So that is how we go. And then for sure, the last thing that comes in when clients walk in and say, steel is coming to 9 and steel is coming to 10 and steel is coming to 8, and how do we reduce it to 5 and 6, which is 10? So then the game starts of give and take. And that is how the overall project goes about in this factor. And then we all work around together to see how it fits in within your project.
Right.
Thank you.
Now, I rightly said, basically, 7-story building keeping 10 times on one another doesn't make 70-story building. Now architects have, at least nowadays architects have adjusted to that fact. I am happy to know that. You are talking about core, you are talking about aspect ratio, you are talking about torsion. Yes, it's a beautiful thing in my life.
If we forget some aspect, they remind us. I will check the torsion.
That's all. But one major thing which is missing in this particular thing, what we do, nowadays you have started calling us before submitting the plan to the corporation. Papa, ye aspect ratio barabar hai kya? And ye building khadi rahegi kya? But unfortunately, what is happening is we are now having one major missing link in a particular high-rise construction, which is constructability factor. And what is happening, I give the drawing to the contractor and I ask these two gentlemen sitting here, you have to construct it. And whether my cranes are going to be there, where my cranes are going to be accommodated, where my vertical transportation is done, all these things is a missing link in this entire. So, Yogesh and you, don't you feel that you people has to be involved right from day one when you are starting the planning of high-rise construction? Yogesh, you can, or anybody.
Constructability reviews of the design is non-existent. Once the designs are finalized, we are asked, those drawings are literally
You have to graduate now.
But Mr. Vatwe, before we get into this topic, I'd like to go back to Qutub's comment. See, since we are in Mumbai, in the Mumbai market, about 25 floors typically within the suburban and island city, every 10 floors that you add adds to about 15 to 18% of the cost. And most of it is aspirational from the developers. It's an inverted bell curve. As you keep going taller, the profits at certain point they'll slide down. So that is something that we have to realize sooner or later. So Girish, to answer your question, is high-rise a solution for low-cost housing? Probably it will depend upon whether it's in the island city, whether it's in the suburbs. It will depend on the location, the plot, many other factors. But going forward, we'll have to keep that also in mind. It does not make sense for the developer to just keep on going tall. It was aspirational. Even today, we see in the Worli skyline, you'll find multiple, high-rises, projects have been left half done. It's just not profitable anymore for the developer.
Right.
Coming back to the constructability standpoint, it's a a request to you as a structural engineer, Qutub, and Rushikesh as architects, to make it as easy to construct as possible. For example, simple things like avoiding fins at the top levels, avoiding pergolas, or introduction of non-structural walls. We are always using, for anything about 35, we will go with the aluminum formwork. So if you can incorporate non-structural walls, avoid block work. And at the end of the day, this is all also adding up to the sustainability quotient of that project. The lesser the water we use, the lesser electricity we use, like Mr. Watwe said, logistics, taking all these materials up to the 40th, 50th, 70th floor, whatever. It's a huge task. At one point of time, the project manager has to think, what should I take up today? The tower cranes are busy, the passenger hoists and the material hoists are busy. So it's an equilibrium that we'll have to find out what works best. So do give us the chance to review your designs from a constructively standpoint before we put them into production.
Kaustuv, your thoughts?
I would like to have something about timelines also. How you can make it faster.
No, I'll go in a slightly skew way. Architect, yes, they have to deliver what customer needs. Structural engineer, he has to fit in what the architectural aspirations are. Now, what happens? Who is going to build? Now, when it comes to the cycle time, the speed of construction, I will share my experience, not to be put it across that it is a view of L&T. It is a personal view as a professional. The missing links are, one is logistic heavily, because how much meter cube of concrete has to go in, how many transit mixers can pass through. There is no idea. Second is, if you have to do it in 7-day cycle, how many people have to go there? What crane is needed? Whether the crane fits in anywhere? Whether the people can go? Do you have the skill set? Third fallacy is, it's very easy to say that this is the formwork going to be used, this is the system to be used. But really, today when we are using, I'll just counter a little bit, not against, but I will put an argument. Is aluminium formwork a formwork? Aluminium formwork is basically a compensatory to the skill set missing in the market. That's number one. Number two, when you do aluminium formwork, I have witnessed that the non-structural walls or this, when it is coming for removing the block work, a person has to work within 1.5 meter. Two sides, the props are coming in, things are jetting out. The speed is not there. He can only build up 45 kg to 50 kg per man day. So these kind of dynamics, when it goes to the higher level, a person who climbs up, it's very difficult for him to operate in such windy zone. That is one part of it. Second part of it, when we talk about climbers, when we talk about passenger hoist, high-speed passenger hoist, the buildings are not been built to take those kind of loads. When the passenger hoist of a high speed comes in, when its braking force comes, the columns which you intend to connect, they are not capable. So as you rightly said, sir, where the things are going to be, that need to be decided, and those localized strengthening has to be done. Now, in Indian market, or I'll say Bombay, let us restrict for the moment, people climb more than 5 floors. What do you expect him to do after climbing 5 floors? If you go to Australia, if you go to the parts of US, you will find that not more than 3 floors people are supposed to climb. Every single bio need are being fit in the position. Now when you do shear walls and that kind of things, you cannot run the temporary solutions like that. You have to jet in within the system which has been provided for the permanent structure. Now those costs comes in. If you use that, and you cannot hand it over to the customer. So unless we come out of this cost paradigm, it is very difficult. But if you say cost paradigm is not there, then business itself doesn't stay. So striking a balance over there, which we are looking at, I think that is a non-equilibrium. It is though we say it is a dynamic equilibrium, but it doesn't stay. It has to be give and take for the customer, for the architect, how to manage this. But yes, The transparency has to come that the contractor, can they be on board? Now, when you call me on board, if I am not having any stake over there, how much you want me to participate over there? There is an interest. I have come through the contracts wherein I remember sharing something and then I see it is inside the contract. And I shared some intrinsic value which became a part of it. Now my differentiator is lost. So why should I? When there is a business threat, why should I? So that has to be first farmed up before we go for the contract. This is the contractor, main contractor to be on board. This is the architect. This is the structural engineer. This is the MEP services. You all sit together and come out with a solution. Whereas here, everything gets fixed, last comes the contractor.
I will tell you, basically, I am not looking as a contractor who is looking after the constructability. Nowadays, new breed has come, like project management consultant or an engineer in charge from client side, because high-rise construction is not the, everybody can do it. There are some major builders who are doing and they have announced their capacity. So basically, won't you feel that those people has to be involved when people are conceptualizing? Because if you say Burj Khalifa, without Abdul Razak, I don't think so it is possible to construct it in given time. So basically, how you are going to construct, what is the timeline, what is the cost, what is the everything, we have to involve. I am saying specifically for PMC. Unfortunately, the person who was going to be moderator was the PMC guy from Turner, and they are doing all these things. So we are taking its questions ahead.
That's right.
See, when it comes to PMC, specifically in Indian market, majority of the development what we had seen in 2006, 7, 8, 9, majority of them came from overseas. Okay? You have to take it with a pinch of salt. No market dynamics is there with them. The equipment what they had used is totally different. The workman dynamics is not understood, because when you work in overseas, your passport is there, they are going to stay for 12 months at least. Here, every 3 months the churning out happens. So the PMCs who doesn't have a market understanding and comes from a different ecosystem. I have noticed that when we were doing one of the high rise, when the PMC was actually been taken off, then the job started going at 3 days a floor, 4 days a floor. But still they were there, they were thinking that Europe can be brought over here and it would be developed. So Indian experience is not exactly what is global talks. So there is a difference. Like Yogesh and all, when they handle in a different way. But when you see a person who is coming from overseas had done Burj Khalifa, it is very difficult for him to deliver a 40-story building in Indian market. That's why the problem is. He comes, he throws bigger lights. But when you come to reality, neither you have the skill set, nor you have the understanding, nor you have the logistics, nor you have the plan, nor you have the roster, nor you have the people. Only
So
people
as,
who understand.
As it happens, we don't have a PMC on the dais to answer your allegations.
It's not allegation, it's just fact being repeated.
I don't know whether there are any PMCs sitting out there, but Rushikesh, PMC is a big problem, right?
Absolutely.
So, as an
I think my
architect,
team is also
what
there.
are your experiences with PMC?
Actually, most important thing, they're all half experienced people. They have not done high rises.
Wait, is there anybody out here? No. You can go on. No, you are
I'm
client.
not saying,
you are client.
See, you're the client.
Yeah,
So
you go on.
PMCs they need to be like, the people who have done that kind of tower, that kind of work, that kind of way. You cannot pick a person from the street and make him a head of the and then he goes after the architects and structural consultants for the drawings and all. That is what we are seeing. Because the timelines and all, they are not there from the day one. The project manager is not there from the day one. He doesn't know what the DBR, what we have given. He doesn't know, he comes with new ideas, and it is very easy for a person who has come in between, after 1 year of the project to come and comment than, to be there from day one where client has approved the plans and we have started constructing the whole thing.
No, but we have to be fair to them, right? The developer doesn't want to bring PMC in picture until plans are frozen. So that's not his fault as such. But so Qutub, suppose a choice is given to you, like Rushikesh said, a structural engineer has to be involved in, all consultants have to be involved in the first place. Achyut said, constructability consultant or contractor has to be involved in the right in the beginning. Do you think involvement of a PMC right in the beginning will help your designs and in general execution of the project architecturally?
So, I feel that once a concept stage is done, then it becomes important if all this involvement starts coming. Prior to concept, it doesn't really make sense. Once you have a basic concept scheme which is there on hand, then as we normally have the second round where all consultants come in, the licensing consultant comes in, the structure comes in, MEP comes in. So even when the PMC comes in and looks at the structural constructible factor into it, so then that's value addition, So the idea is that we don't have to do repetitive work. We don't have to go to a certain stage and then do a reversal of the work. So if there's a person at that stage and that person can do some value addition, why not? So there's nothing wrong with as far as this factor is
concerned. As architects and consultants, see, anybody can get up and give value addition comments, okay? But he's not accountable for the delays. He's not accountable for the costs, you know best, right? So who suffers? It is the consultants who have to deliver.
So that's
and
why
the contractor who has to deliver.
That's exactly why I'm saying that if it is there on the round table in the starting after the concept stage, from concept when we are moving to the schematic and we are explaining the project to you, to the MEP consultant, to the landscape, to the other consultants, if there is a PMC sitting there, and as you all are adding your values to the project, he can also add the value to the project. And if there's something plus and minus, it can be debated at that point of time. If there is something positive, it can be accepted and adapted. If it is not, it could be debated and neglected at that point of time. But then, once you go on to the schematic, then there is no turning back. And then afterward, no one comes and tells you that this is not workable and this is workable. So you have a sign-off at that stage from that consultant also. So that when you move to this and you close the schematic, everyone is on board. And then things can move smooth.
Right. So you are itching to say something.
No, I kind of agree with Kaustuv. I mean, when most of the PMCs in India today are either the IPCs who have taken over this additional role, or it's a few British and American, companies that have set shop. But it's been some time that they have been in the market and they are slowly starting to understand how things work. So probably Kaustuv is not entirely wrong when, for example, in Dubai, the workers' passports are taken off. 12 months they are almost in the jail and they'll do anything that they are told to. That doesn't happen in India. But slowly things are changing. And when we onboard the PMC for our projects, we typically do it way before we start the schematic. But the entire team does not need to be in place day one. A few key construction personnel, even that is sufficient, good enough. They are not huge costs depending on the size of the project. They do add value. So just to defend Mr. Dubey, who's not here today.
Okay.
My next question is very dear question for everybody. Basically, he has mentioned that lot of buildings in Worli area standing incomplete and all the things. And basically architects and also Kaustuv and Yogesh, basically the problem with the high-rise, the way we are tackling these high-rises in Indian context is very cavalier fashion. That is my statement today. Basically, after constructing 50 stories, they want to have a change in 40 story also, and after constructing 50 stories, they want to increase by another 20 stories. Same building, same thing. They want to make changes, they want to change in flat sizes, and this required by market dynamics. I don't mind it, but they will come with very, very, very different figure. If you don't do this, I will lose 300 crores. I don't know how many zeros after 3 it comes. But still, this 300 crores is a very big sum. And then it's a problem to everybody. So I know Qutub must have faced this problem. We also faced the problem in Rushikesh. Or in a construction also, they have to change. L&T has faced the problem. They have to change the entire construction system right from day one, what they are doing and what they are doing it today. So basically, what is your opinion on this for Indian context? Whether we should accommodate those changes and whether we should accept it? Yes, under the pretext of financial requirement, we may have to accept, but it's a really, really harmful. Otherwise, we would have completed those high-rise buildings. Anybody can answer this. Everybody's.
Rather let all of us answer. So to start with, we have to react to the market dynamics. Many projects, if we stick to just residential, as the market changes, 4 BHKs get converted into 3 2 BHKs or 2 BHK jodis get converted to 4. So that's market dynamics. We all have to learn to live with it. There's no two ways about it.
Yes, the Indian market is very fluid. We all are aware of it. But even though all the builders are my clients or some of them are my clients, I can just say that maturity has to come in, where one has to understand that the graph of any industry is never going to be low all the time, nor is it going to be high at all the time. You have to set a product which is going to sell in both these things and construct within that feasibility.
See, I personally feel that things are actually changing now, because today we are having RERA, so probably change over a period of time is not going to be as easy as it was earlier. So we have to stick to a certain parameters. So the biggest problem in India where it starts in terms of changes do happen because the study and the market analysis has not happened properly. Or the second aspect why the change could happen is a project is inordinately delayed where the market conditions change. So coming back to the first point and the second point, they get mixed up here, where we say that the constructive one is the research has to be extremely strong from a marketing perspective, what they need to do. Second, once the construction gets off ground, which definitely gets a lot delayed today, not because of the construction processes. Today in certain states, what we see is that the licensing time to get an approval is probably as high or higher than the construction time, which is actually the most shameful aspect in our country. So as long as we start getting our approvals of bylaws and your drawings in say around 2 months or 3 months, which is pretty reasonable, or even say 6 months, I feel that the market conditions won't fluctuate as much, and we can probably stick to certain things which happen. And with RERA coming in, obviously changes are bound to reduce now, and I think this is one factor. I think we are now transiting between an era where we were doing normal buildings to high-rise buildings. The entire economics of the country has changed, and with foreign PMCs, Indian PMCs, we are becoming more westernized. Westerners are becoming more Indianized. So I feel the intermix of talent also which is coming in is changing. On the PMC equation, I feel that developers are not empowering the PMCs as much as they should. So technically the PMCs unfortunately have become reporting and drafting agencies more than actually execution agencies in our country, since they are not empowered by the clients. So I think the whole equation is that we are all still in an ascent stage, and the market is maturing at a very fast speed, because the financial equations are changing so fast that we are having to adapt to it very fast. So I think these small challenges that we see today is the beginning stage, and I think maybe in probably 6-7 years we'll be out of all this. Architects would have learned about torsion and other things. PMCs would have learned what is to be done. So I think that learning graph will cross it in the next 3 to 4 years.
See, as long as structurally there are no changes, the challenge happens is, okay, from duplex they want to make it to simplex, that's okay. But when they change the configuration, then the services play a very, a different role. Then you need different toilets. Then the Vastu consultant comes into picture, especially in South. And they don't want to give provision for the AC outdoors and all that. For high-rise and all, it's very challenging. When they change the plan, then the dynamics change very fast. That is the challenge, to accommodate everybody and changing the services. Services is very difficult, especially air conditioning. Electrical is not a challenge. Never. Air conditioning is a very big challenge. That's what I face.
Now in the value chain of high rise, the lowermost part is the constructor. So when the first speaker says yes, it is doable, we have hardly any choice to do that. That's number one. Number two, always in any business, the change management is the most difficult thing. Now, if a business has to sustain, it has to be as contemporary as to the market. So as a constructor, we'll always say, okay, yes, change is doable, because when architect says it is doable, PMC says it is doable, structural engineer says it's doable. Now, what happens in the process is the timeline. How quick you can bring in the changes, and then whether the change is being adapted by the working group, those who have been habituated to some system, some kind of structural orientation. So that dynamics plays a role, for which I think we are not still yet matured to see the human component into this system, the people who build up. Otherwise, I think we should be always open that whatever changes is required, because developer doesn't make money, architect doesn't have a job, constructor doesn't have a job, structural engineer doesn't have a job. Instead of resisting a change which is demanded by the market, I think we should be more open to the change and how it could be buildable. That's all.
That's very nicely put. In fact, that actually justifies the theme of this panel discussion. That these are challenges.
We can have one question from.
Yeah, we'll have question, but these are the challenges.
One question, because
yeah, okay, one question.
We are lingered.
Yeah. Any question? Yes, sir.
It's a major question.
That will be enough for everyone.
No. I quite agree with whatever has been stated here. But one thing I think we are missing is we are talking about these tall buildings which are being constructed at what, 20,000 rupees, cost per square meter.
20,000 could be square foot.
20,000 is square foot. So now, instead of making a big noise about additional floors to be accommodated, I think it will be a very good idea if we build these additional floors in the original design, because if we do the analysis, we'll find that the additional cost is hardly 200 300 rupees a square meter, which is a built-in cost. Now, if we don't extend the building becomes that much safer. And if this fact is projected correctly to the client may accept this as additional burden, which gives him the freedom and also does not increase our blood pressure when it comes to accommodating those floors. Because we have to go back to high-rise committee, we have to go through the entire process of analysis. So I would strongly recommend that we should have, like in the good old days, I'm talking about 50-60 years ago, architects used to say, अरे आपका डिजाइन है ना, उसमें 2-3 floors तो आप provision रखते हैं ना हमेशा. Like that. Even in multi-storied buildings, people nowadays talk like that. So my recommendation is that we should, as a practice, right from the beginning, ask the client whether he would like to keep that provision. Just as when we are traveling, let's say driving from here to Bangalore or wherever, we don't put the exact amount of petrol in the car. We always carry some extra with us.
Yeah. Okay, so that was great. Indrajeet, Qutub, Yogesh, Rushikesh, and Kaustuv. So that has been nice discussion. We'll meet outside on sometime, not today, on dinner and continue this discussion. Without the audience, of course. Okay, thanks a lot.